All right, welcome to Carvel Community Meeting. This meeting is being recorded. Just a reminder to please adhere to the code of conduct, which is listed in the agenda. I will post the agenda in Zoom so everyone has it handy. And we will kick off today's meeting with Aaron. He's going to be going over some of the backlog items, and we'll work through that and then go on to discussion topics. So I'll let Aaron take it from here.
All right, thank you, Nancy. Let me share my screen. All right, so as some brief status updates, we do have the YTT schemas track still in progress. Maybe I'll just bring up the ZenHub board now. Let's collapse everything else for now. So we do have YTT schemas still in progress. We have, here you go, a story that we'll be discussing today. And then following that, we just have a couple other stories for documentation and do some usability testing. So that's what's remaining on our schema MVP. Other things that have been in flight, we have this include non-distributable layers work on image package. We currently have a final story in flight, and this is just about the Go container registry pulling. Well, they have already emerged in our changes or our upstream contributions. We're just waiting for a new release to be cut so that we can consume those contributions. So that's the only thing remaining on that track of work. We do have some performance related work for image package that we currently have in flight. Still very much in flight, but we have found some interesting findings so far. I don't know, Dennis or Cari, anyone want to provide a brief update on the story?
Yeah, I mean, we did a bit of profiling and we found a few different ways we can improve things, like not calling certain things twice when we can only just call it once, and that still works. And instead of calling a get, call it with a head request, because we only want to digest, so we don't have to download all the blob content to figure that out. And also, we're going to also, if possible, mount blobs if you're copying from the same registry, and so you don't have to copy the bits. You just essentially create a symlink. And this table just shows the performance improvement, really. So like the second row, we had a Docker with 20 images, but there's only one image 20 times. It's a gigabyte large, and the old way used to take 14 minutes. Now it takes like just under 8 minutes. So, and the other nice improvement was the second last one, local registry. Again, 20 images with only one distinct, and it's a large image. It's a gig. It used to take 6 minutes. Now it only takes 1 minute. That's like on local registry to local registry. So in theory, we're going to see nice improvements for like large images. Really, that most of that came from mounting the blob. And we're also going to leverage one more thing, which is when we write multiple images, we're going to leverage like this Go container registry multi-write function, which has performance reasons why you should call it. The biggest one is it dedupes all the layers. So if you have like 20 images and there's like 10 layers in common, it will only upload that one layer twice for you. Still in flight. This is the remaining tasks left to do on this story.
Cool, thank you.
Hey, Aaron, while we got this one open, I wanted to pass along observation that Dimitri made, and I thought this was helpful. In addition to like the well-ordered cases, might be handy to grab one where there's decidedly a distribution of shapes of images and size of images. One such project is CF for K8s. I think it has it. Last I looked, there were like 49 images in the whole product. So being able to get a read on that as well might be helpful, because sometimes performance characteristics shift depending on, you know, when there's a greater degree of variance. So that might be a signal, just kind of passing that along.
Yeah, we can do that. Although all this work is about doing less calls and less uploads. So I'm happy to do that, but I would continue down this track. And then once we have a final kind of stable fix, we can check out the old branch, run it with CF K8s, and then check out the new branch. And I think we're going to see a performance improvement still.
Yeah, nice.
Cool. Sounds like a plan. All right. And then looking at the rest of these, I don't think there's anything else that we need to touch on. So I think we can get started then into what are this week's stories that we should discuss and point. So we have a new prioritized epic, which is a recursive relocation or recursive bundles within image package. Joao, would you want to speak to these stories?
Yeah, I can do that. So, so before we dive into the stories in themselves, maybe it makes sense for us to talk a little bit about what this is. So, like this feature, the idea behind this feature is image package is able to create a bundle with your configuration plus images. It's also able to copy that bundle from one repo, from one registry repo to another one, and you're able then to pull it and to execute and install and deploy that bundle in itself. So this functionality already exists, but there was a caveat that we never implemented, or that currently is an error. That is, what happens if you're trying to bundle a bundle? So at this point, we only had bundles of images. They are like separate images. And what this proposal brings to table is the ability for our packager to package separate smaller bundles and then have like a bigger bundle that they can bundle all these things together. So if we think about a good example for this could be CF for K8s, where each individual component could bundle its own piece, and then VMware as a whole could just pick it up and just pick up all those bundles together and just bundle them back again so they can distribute as a whole. So this is more or less what we're talking about in this feature. And in order to allow this workflow to work with image package, we need this couple of stories that are here. So let's start with the simplest story. And that simple story is basically allowing our users to create a bundle that have other bundles on it. So if we follow through the acceptance criteria, we have, I believe, two scenarios on this story. The first scenario is that the user can create a recursive bundle, a bundle that contains another bundle. So if you see there, we have a little bit of our images lock. And so if the new bundle that we're going to create points to another bundle, if we do an image push of this folder, then we should see nothing different, but we should see this working. So currently, if you do the command, the image package push -b with a bundle that contains other bundles, it will fail. So this is what we're trying to achieve here, is the ability to, okay, let's remove that guard there. And then what we want to see as well is that when you do a pull of it, nothing changes, but you can still pull the bundle. So this is the first scenario that we have here. The second scenario is exactly the same scenario, but it has just a little tweak. That is, we have a bundle that contains a bundle and an image. It's just to make sure that we do not have any regression and you can still package images with our bundle. So those are like the two scenarios that we have here. There's a note there on the bottom that says that the image pool will change. The output that you see will change in the next story in the future. But for now, in this first story, the pool is going to look exactly the same. There will be no difference. So does anyone have any question?
When you're saying the output of the image pool wouldn't change, like what is it that we're not seeing?
It's just like a reference. It's there. It's like nothing will change. That's it. That's what it says. Because when we're gonna see the next story is going to change the way pool looks like. And if you saw the proposal, the proposal had like a very different output for pool, and this is just a call out saying that we know that this change is going to come up, but it's not in this story. So this story, we expect nothing to change at the pool level.
I see. So the reference to a bundle exists, but pool doesn't respect it yet.
Yes.
Okay.
So after this story is done, we have scenario 1 and scenario 2 committed, pushed, merged. How does copy work? Like if we copy this bundle to a table, what would the output look like? What would the command exit with?
At this point, like, unfortunately, that it's very hard to create a story that's small enough that contains the full breadth of this change. This change, it doesn't make sense until you get to the story that allows you to copy. And that's only the 5th or 6th story in this group of stories. And the split was more function-wise, just try to get smaller stories to get us along the way. And it will become a strange position if you try to execute this with bundles that have other bundles until you get to that last story.
Okay, so it just won't work for the meanwhile. And we don't add any checks in the copy code to say, you know, if you're copying from a bundle to a tar file, like give back a warning, just like don't do anything, don't make any changes in copy, basically.
Yes, I don't think we need to do them right now. We could if we think that's a better thing, or it could even, like, what's going to happen right now if you keep the copy is that it's only going to copy the bundle image. So in the end, you'd still have like the bundle image with you, but the rest would be in the other registry. So there would be like a breakage here.
Maybe something to take note of, as Joao mentioned, is it was kind of tough to, I think, find the appropriate slices for these stories, and they might not be completely exclusive of each other, or in fact, they are likely not. If it makes sense, like maybe, I don't know, you can always have more than one of these in flight, or if we want to reshape these stories in some way, I think that's all open for feedback. We want to make sure that, like, you know, the way they're shaped is helpful for the team, but these are also a tricky set of stories to write in that standard, like, you know, super thinly sliced way.
One way I think about these things is we have one part of the workflow is high fidelity support that is here creating the bundle. And then it drops off where it's like, well, you need to know that you have a bundle that refers to a bundle, and you've got to do that additional copy yourself in order to make that work. And then that way you can sort of regard the whole flow as complete, but degraded fidelity of implementation until we get to those later stages. That's one way I'm able to rationalize these things. But that does bring up a question in my mind about how we sort of draw the transaction boundary. And I just mean that like as like implementing a full feature around this whole thing. One way we've done in the past, we put a feature flag. Another way we can do it is where with each story, we're keeping documentation. And I think then Dennis, you brought up the point about maybe a warning, keep that up to date so that we can continue to always have a releasable product, and the experience that the user will have is at least honest to say, hey, this isn't going to completely happen the way you expected. It will be soon, or something like that. So then I would propose, I would be thinking about this when I'm pointing this story, is that we need to do a little tiny something to at least emit a warning for pull and copy. Would that be okay?
I have a clarifying question. So to make sure that I understand the note at the bottom, I'm a little confused if we're making a distinction between the output of image package pull that you see in the terminal, whether that is what doesn't change, or whether the like output directory that you specify, that doesn't change, and like whether you would see the recursive bundle contents in that output directory as part of the story.
Okay, so I see that I shouldn't have put that note there. This note was here just so, like, if you follow the proposal, you see that the output, what you see in the screen, it's completely different from what you're going to see. What you see right now, it's not going to be even remotely similar to what you have in the future. And that was the note, just to clarify that the behavior will change, and what you see and what will happen will change, but not right now. So that's what this note is talking about. So if it makes more confusion, I can just remove it.
I don't think the note itself is a problem. So I think actually it's great that you brought attention to this so we can be clear together on what the story means.
Cool. Yeah, so basically the output directory will not change, as well as the output text. Cool. Thank you.
This is a change. This change here is a change on the push side of the world. That's basically what's going to happen here. About what you're saying, John, we could add more things. We can talk about it, but we should define it on the story if there's something that we should add here. Like if you want to add some messages and so on, then we should add that information here. But that will increase the scope of work of this particular story. And
Yeah,
what I was going to say is that I'm perfectly okay of having a head of develop that's not 100% working for all the use cases for the time being of this feature. But at least that's my my view.
Would it be releasable? Like, it might not be working for all the use cases, but do you think it's releasable? If we need to ship like a security fix, would we have to do some workarounds, or is it just commit on develop and then release it as well?
It's going to work. Like, yeah. This will not change anything. The only difference is that previously we got an error saying that you couldn't push a bundle that contain other bundles, and now you'd be able to. So that's the only difference from what currently exists, right?
Okay. And I have one more last question, and it's probably answered in a future story, but there's no validation required. Like, it's just the image key, and an image might be a typical image or might be a bundle, and we don't have to look into this bundle to make sure that there's no circular dependencies or that whether it's a valid bundle. It's just text for the time being as part of the story. Like no image introspection or anything like that required.
There's no need. The push, the only thing that push does is just collect the images, creates a layer, and pushes the layer. So there's no validation that needs to happen at this point.
Okay, I didn't think so. Thanks.
So yeah, the only thing remaining then is the product question of, is the user experience of doing a pull on what I thought would give me recursive bundles doesn't, and currently it would just not do it silently. Is that okay?
think it would be confusing if we shipped it like that. Like if we do the story and then we release it and people use it, I think they'll be confused, maybe.
I'd be okay adding a feature flag to this pull for now, for the time being. And then we can remove it in the end.
Okay, so it sounds like we want to address it. I'll leave it to the individuals that pick this up as to what way we do that. How about we do a round of pointing to see where folks are thinking right now? Cool, ready to point? Let's go 3, 2, 1, shoot. All right, we got some 1s, we got some 2s. How about hear from the 2s?
I think this is a story. It's a 1 story. I'm just adding like a little bit of uncertainty. Like if you want to do the flag, if you don't want to do the flag, if you want to do like anything else extra to just communicate to the user. But in the end, I think this is a 1-point story.
Ditto.
Anyone from the 1s want to speak?
I put a 1. Sounds like we're removing a guard and probably adding a feature flag. It didn't seem like a lot of complexity, or I can't think of too many unknowns either.
All right, let's try pointing once more, see if we develop further consensus either way. So 3, 2, 1, shoot. All right, the 1s have it. Shall we go to the second story?
Okay, so this story is like the second step that will finish the first complete flow of image package, and that is someone picks up a bundle, pushes that bundle to a registry, and someone somewhere else will pull that bundle and it will do things with the bundle, right? So like this would be the first complete flow that image package has. So what this story has, it introduces a new behavior on pull, where now if you provide a flag that is -r, what it will do is it is going to go through all the images that contain on our image Oh, forgot that part. That's awesome. Or did I not? I think is it there? We'll see. So like what this does is it will pull pull the image, plus it will pull all the bundles. It will pull all the images of the bundles that exist inside that bundle. And this could be recursive. This could go way through like 10 deep. And the first thing that we'll see is that the output now of our pull -r is completely different. And now it has some sort of like indentation, and we can see like if this is like the best, if there's like anything that could make it easier to read or not, or we can just postpone this and see what the users give us some feedback on. But now we have like some structure, and we were telling it there are nested bundles, and that our bundles do have nested things inside of them. So that's our first scenario. If we go to our second scenario, we see that this is also a, yeah, I think I forgot. Oh, that's sad. Okay, so I'm missing a scenario there. So this is just to say that there's like a minus recursive, and it's missing the more important part of this feature. Which is kind of sad. But let's go to the third one, and I'll talk about the second one. The third one is that if you do a pull without the -r, it will do nothing, but it will print some more information about the nested bundles. Okay. So the scenario that we are missing here is that's all fine and good, but we need to pull the folders. And that's the part that is missing here. But if you scroll up, does it have a link to the proposal? It does not. Can you go to the proposal quickly? Okay, if you scroll down to the pool area. Okay, there you go. So when you do pool minus R, this is our expectation. So if you do a pool minus R, all the bundle configuration, all the configurations for all the bundles will be placed inside a folder called bundles inside our image package particular folder, and they'll have the SHA, the name of the folder that contains the configuration will be SHA dash and the SHA of the bundle. Okay.
And this itself is not nested. It's flat regardless of how many layers of nesting there is in this tree of bundles. These will all be flattened to just one huge thing of SHA named directories.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I am so sorry that this didn't go through. Does it make sense?
So how is that different from dash dash recursive again?
So this is what is expected to happen when you do dash R or minus dash dash recursive.
Oh, okay. They're the same.
It's the same flag. It's the short flag and the long flag.
Oh, okay.
The behavior is exactly the same.
Gotcha.
Okay, so if I'm understanding this right, Joao, the only missing piece was just, and if you look on disk, here's what this looks like.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's missing just the output of a tree in one of the criteria. And I thought I did have that on the second scenario, but apparently I did not.
So do you intend, is there any other difference between scenario 1 and 2 other than one's using a short form flag? Okay. So the behavior is the same. It's that the input is either short or long flag.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. I assume we want to say something to the user if they're like a warning of some kind. I don't know, that like some sufficiently loud signal that this thing contains additional bundles which were not pulled. If you need them, please use the -R. Is that covered here, or is there some subsequent story that will enhance this?
No, we did not. Like the assumption that that piece that you see there, it would be enough. But if y'all think it's not enough, we can add some sort of like text maybe here as it is part of it that would say something like, if you want to get all the bundle information, just use the -R.
Yeah, I don't read from what I see here heads or tails whether or not it is or isn't included.
Okay.
Personally.
Yeah, I agree. I think that makes sense. We should add that warning. And alternatively, if you use the -r flag and your bundle doesn't contain any recursive bundles, that should just work as expected, as normal, and it will ignore the -r flag.
Yes.
I would expect that to work as normal, but provide some sort of warning about, hey, you didn't actually need this. There were no recursive bundles.
I don't know if a warning is necessary. I can imagine like this command being used in maybe like a CI to work no matter what, whether a recursive bundle is specified or not, it just always will work. Curious if others think differently.
Yeah, maybe you've gone through it, but why do we need the -- recursive flag? Why not just always recursively get all the bundles? Like why? Yeah.
So this was the original like idea for the proposal. It would just always get it. But the use case that we currently have for image package is the usage of it being, it's being used on the kapp controller context. And the kapp controller does not care about the bundles, the bundles that are inside the big bundle. So this is going to be used as a, in the kapp controller world, it's going to be a package, and a package contains pointers to other packages and information about each one of these packages. And when I say packages, the term is interchangeable with bundle in image package world, not at kapp controller level, but at image package level, it is a bundle. So the use case that we're targeting for now is it's possible to just download the configuration for this particular bundle. And this would be the main use case for image package. But we will also allow for people to download all the configuration for all the bundles using the minus recursive flag. Did the explanation make sense?
I have enough information to point.
Okay, how about we do a round of pointing then?
Have we done the spiel on why we point yet since we started this new format? I can give that spiel now of like what pointing is and why we do it. So basically we provide a estimate of complexity on stories, just the engineering team. And this complexity estimate is based on stories that we've completed in the past. It's all relative across all of the repos that we maintain. And so we count to 3 and throw a number of complexity on the Fibonacci scale of how complex we think the story is. That complexity estimate goes into calculating like velocity and can help to be used to track like estimated timelines of when work will be done.
Ms. Cari? Cool. All right. Let's demo what pointing looks like. All right, 3, 2, 1, shoot. All right, we got some 3s and we got some 2s. Let's start with the 3s.
Well, I pointed a 3. I think, yeah, just test driving the changes to recursively get bundles. I don't know. It just feels like a big. It sounds like the first step is usually we have to build all the testing infrastructure to do this. So like I feel like we're going to do a little, adding tests to begin with. Also, recursion can be tricky, and making sure we don't have any like, infinite loops, or we deal with the cyclic dependency issues, and making sure that all works. I also have questions about compatibility moving forward. Like, bundles have images locks, images YAML, and I'm going to at least ask some questions about how we future-proof this a little bit. Not maybe as part of the story, but just thinking about it. Like, there's a few like low-level implementation details that I like to think about as well when doing this recursive bundle story. I don't know.
How about hearing from a 2?
I am a high 2. So
Okay, maybe there's not a lot of opposing perspective then. Let's try pointing once again, just to see where we're landing then. So 3, 2, 1, shoot. All right, looks like 3s. We'll take it. Okay, let's see, time check. We got a lot other things to get through still. Let's see. And there is a discussion topic on testing frameworks. So let's see if we can get through a kapp story at least. So we are prioritizing some kapp work. Okay, there's the rest of it this week. So there's a couple of issues that I don't know, we've heard from a number of folks saying that this is something that's blocking some of their adoption of kapp. The first one we'll talk about here is kapp should double check that K8s API returns labeled resources. So right now, kapp expects the Kubernetes API to return resources based on the label query specified. As Dimitri mentioned here, when folks are using the aggregated API implementation, there is no guarantee that resources are filtered by the label as kapp expects, Antria being one of the examples being called out here. So this story is determining a way to work with these types of resources that may not have the, I guess, may not be filtered by label as kapp would expect from a K8s API response. Some details in here. I see Daniel asked a question about like what would be the behavior expected here. And Dimitri responded that it would eliminate the resource from further processing. So it would allow kapp to keep working with these types of resources. It just wouldn't do further things like diffing. Do folks have questions, or does anyone else want to add more context to this issue?
So in the description, it says, it appears that if aggregated API implementation come into play. What's an aggregated API implementation? I think I missed that.
Yeah, there's a bunch of machinery being referenced here directly. In Kubernetes, there's a way to extend the standard API to actually add your own machinery to that. You augment it, but it appears as if it's just the Kubernetes API. You don't have to do anything new to reference it, to use it as a client. So it's a way of being able to augment that. And tools like Entrea will do that. They might do that because they want to add additional processing around those kinds of requests. So it's kind of an advanced extension point for cluster machinery. And it's their job. They now have like a whole set of responsibilities that you get out of the box if you stay within the Kubernetes resource API One of them is that when a query is sent, if it includes a filter that says, don't only give me resources that have these labels, you got to make sure that you only return those resources with those labels. Now, some folks haven't done all the work and they return back resources that don't have those labels. And then kapp's like, this doesn't make sense.
Okay, and this aggregated import API that you just discussed, it's not experimental and it might come into play. Like this is something that's already out in the play. So it's not if it appears, if it comes into play, it's like, it's probably going to happen and we do want to handle this. Like there's no point deferring and waiting to see if this is adopted or not. Okay.
No, this is just about in a particular operator's life that like they might come into third-party software that will do this.
Yeah.
That's the come into play. Yeah.
Cool.
What's the current behavior if we get back way more than we expected when requesting these labeled resources?
We error out. So what the one way I've thought about this is what we're doing is we're trying to help the operator in a situation where the third-party extension on top of Kubernetes that they're using isn't behaving to spec. So instead of just like stopping completely, there may be little things we can do to make that experience smoother. So here's one where we get back resources and it's like, oh, wait, what the aggregated API intended to do was only provide these resources. So kapp is accommodating that. It should have been done to spec upstream. It's not, but kapp's gonna correct it. Oh, there's another piece, sorry, context-wise. Paul dropped a PR there, and this was meant to be a draft PR to help him work around not being blocked. Be inspired by that, but if you dig into the PR, you'll see that there's a few tweaks that are required if that's exactly the right. But it's a nice expression of like a short version of here's basically the behavior that needs to change. So that's pretty nice. You get a nice line up there.
And so like they have an aggregated API import version 1. It doesn't implement labeling or filtering correctly. We ignore it. I think kapp ignores it. And then, you know, aggregate API import version 2 comes in and gets installed. And that does implement filtering correctly. Is the behavior here that kapp would just see that as a brand new resource? Like I'm going to, what, you know, what's the behavior around there?
So yeah, so that first time around with the kapp fixing, basically fronting for that aggregate API's mistake, was that those resources don't get included. It's as if they never got returned in the first place from the aggregated API. So what gets actually applied is the proper set, or what gets incorporated into the diff is the proper set of resources. Then when the aggregated API respects the label filter, kapp just doesn't have any more work to do. There's no filtering that needed to be.
It should be like a no diff. It's like it's already been applied correctly, assuming there's no
Yeah.
changes in the source code, in the source files.
That's right. That's
Cool,
right.
cool.
It will still use the extra cycles, though, to do the filtering, because the filtering still needs to happen. But because you don't know which like that, if the resources are being retrieved from one API or not, or the other, so you'll always have the cycles, even when Andrea already fixed this problem on the latest versions, but we'll always have to pay that cost for them not having that from the start.
Yeah, I have an assumption that is incredibly cheap compared to all the other operations happening. Is that a good assumption? I believe what we're talking about is looping over some objects in memory and dropping them if they don't meet a criteria.
It depends on the amount of objects, but yes. But it would be more expensive. Like it would be less expensive if they just return the amount, because you could receive like 10,000 objects where you just care about 2. Right?
Yep.
So like the expense would be in other places, but yeah.
So maybe just something I'll note is we are kind of just picking up this issue as is. So there is potentially more room for like definition here. I would say for the folks that pick this up, feel free to, share around what you're planning to do once you kind of dive into this a bit more and get feedback, feedback sooner than later, just to make sure the team's in sync on it. Cool. How about we point to see where people are landing right now? 3, 2, 1, shoot. We got some ones, we got some twos. Either side want to speak to their stance?
Yeah, I saw this as a small 2. I originally saw it as a 1, but then when you mentioned that there might be some investigation and like some story writing and some feedback with the team about like what exactly we plan on doing here, that bumped it up to a 2. The technical complexity to me is not very high though. And I feel like that's something that might be shared among the team.
I'm not sure I agree with that. I also threw a 2, but I guess for a different reason. The reason I gave it more than a 1 is that I think I'm being asked to implement a Kubernetes labeled resource selector, and I just don't know what goes into that. So for me, that's much more uncertainty than expectation that this won't be that hard of a problem.
It occurred to me that maybe there's a tiny bit of documentation here too.
I pointed as a 1 because to me, this seems like just filtering resources that were returned based on a single field. And I don't see much technical complexity there.
All right, let's try pointing once more, see where folks are landing now. 3, 2, 1, shoot. All right, I think 2s are going to take it. Okay, so let's see. We are short on time. I think we wanted to get through a schema story still. And I also know we have a discussion topic. I'm curious at the urgency of this discussion topic.
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's going to be quick, but I don't know if we have time. But in the end, like my objective is we voted on what we wanted, and I just wanted to. Okay, so shall we start doing this right now or not? That would be like what my expectation for the discussion this topic is.
Did you want to like maybe include this in tech forum, Joao, and we can give it like due time to like make sure that we're all cool with what that means and everything. Okay.
That.
We have at least one tech forum topic this week, but we can make sure that we make space for this. Yeah, appreciate you moving that forward.
Cool. Thank you. All right, so then do we have enough time to dive into this YTT story?
Let's give it a shot.
All right.
All right. Okay. So private libraries, right? So when you invoke YTT, you're basically running a library, if you will, like a YTT library. But then it could have other libraries that are defined under that _ YTT lib directory. And a core feature of that is that they feel like they run in their own space. They have their own templates, their own data values, and with this story, their own schema. And it should have that sort of recursive feel in a sense that that schema is applicable just to that library. And so this story is an attempt to try and describe what does that mean? What does that look like? So this first scenario, so let me give you a second to read this over. So this is Happy Path. Any questions about this one? Thank you, Cari. So what I mean by private library is, in this example, FUI. I think you just wanted me to say the word FUI. FUI is a private library, as opposed to what? Well, if you create a, as opposed to, geez. Okay, so I guess this is a little bit of a technical, like an implementation detail. But in YTT, every directory is actually its own library. That in practice turns out not to mean too terribly much. But if you had a subdirectory here that was not under the underscore YTT lib, it's considered public directory, and it's all sort of a part of its parent. But this underscore YTT lib says, well, anything under here is disconnected from the parent, and it will be ignored in terms of execution of the parent. And the only way to include its output is to do something like this, where you programmatically pull that library in. And here we're saying, give me the FUI library and take its contents and evaluate it. And that returns a doc set. And then we're saying here, replace this document in the main library with that doc set. Did I explain that well? Okay, any other questions about scenario one? Thanks for asking that, Cari. Okay, so let's take a look at scenario two. I'm scrolling down here. Make sure. Okay, so this is just like the one above it, except now we're gonna include a data value that doesn't match the schema. And there's two ways that you can provide data values to a private library. One is, we call it declaratively, where in a file that's included in the initial invocation, you include a YAML document that is a data values, and you direct that data value to the private library. So this is a way of an end user, regardless of whether or not the author of that public library intended or not, you can reach in and say, here, tweak this piece of data value, this configuration for that private library FUI, and set its data value to this value. Unfortunately, foo is supposed to be a number, not a string. Thankfully, schema catches that, says, hang on here, and here's your output.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
When errors happen inside of like the evaluation context of a library, does it usually output an error that looks like this? Like during the evaluation of this library, this output happened. Okay.
Yeah, great question. I verified that this is what this looks like. This top portion is what it looks like. And so our job is to make sure that the reason is coming from schema.
Is that path okay? Shouldn't it have like the full, sorry, I'm looking at the last line of the output, saying that schema.yaml:4, it kind of feels like we're we should have the rest of the path to get there.
The rest of the path to get
So like
there.
it should be underscore YTT underscore leave slash fui slash schema.yaml:4.
I see.
Because you can have multiple, from now on, you can have multiple schema files.
Mhm. So today we don't qualify in error messages. We don't qualify the file name. I agree with you. I think that could be really confusing because you don't, especially if you had two files of the same name. Let's capture that as a feature enhancement or a bug, depending on your perspective. But we'll say that's out of scope for this story. Let's keep whatever the current behavior is for now. Great question, though. I'll take note of that.
Also, like, do we need to have one data values file per private library?
No.
So you can have multiple at library slash refs at something.
Mm-hmm.
I'm having like a very hard time here. What part of this is already implemented? What part is not? Because to be fair, I don't know private libraries.
Gotcha. So schema as a feature is implemented. Type checking. What is not implemented is that when we go to do this library get eval, we're not incorporating schema checks. We're not looking for the schema within that library. We're not incorporating that check. Today, we're actually using any schema. We're actually saying there's no schema. And then data values that are being set aren't being checked against that corresponding underlying schema today.
So right now, the piping for passing the variables into the private library, all those things is already done. We don't need to do anything there.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, great question. And Aaron, I realize we're out of time here. I hoped at least we could sort of start loading up the idea. We could do like a special pointing session to come back and finish talking about this instead of trying to rush through it or drag into folks' next commitments. So, okay.
That sounds good. Yeah, maybe we'll find some time. Oh, we'll find some time. Cool. All right. Well, we covered quite a bit of ground today. I guess, Nancy, do you want to close us out?
Yeah. Thanks everyone for the great discussion. I feel like we got a lot covered, even though there was a lot more to discuss. For those watching the recording after we've already had this meeting, just a reminder, we do have these meetings every Monday unless there's a holiday. So if you are able to, we would love to see you join us next Monday, March 1st for our community meeting. Otherwise, you can join us on Slack, the Kubernetes Slack channel for Carvel. And we look forward to engaging with you. Bye. Until next time.